You were never meant to remain what the world told you to be. Beneath the noise, beyond the chaos, there is a voice. Not loud, not forceful, but certain. It whispers a truth you've long forgotten. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. This message is not comfort. It is confrontation. It challenges everything you've ever blamed, every excuse you've made, every mask you've worn to survive. But if you stay, if you dare to walk through the fire instead of around it, you'll come face to face with a version of yourself not built by fear or conformity, but by courage. This is not just another motivational speech. This is a confrontation with your deepest potential. Stay until the end, because the version of you that walks away will not be the one who pressed play. There comes a moment in every thinking person's life when they confront the silent terror of chaos, not the chaos of the world, but the chaos within. It manifests as confusion, fragmentation, helplessness. It whispers, "You are not enough. You are broken. You are lost." And yet, the truth hidden beneath this despair is far more radical. You are not what the chaos tells you you are. You are what you choose to become. But that choice is not made lightly. It demands a confrontation with your unconscious, a journey into the depths of your being where most refuse to look. The chaos is not the enemy. The refusal to face it is. In a culture that hands you identities, prescribes roles, and tells you what to value, it is a revolutionary act to stop, turn inward, and ask, who am I when the noise fades? That question is not answered in a sentence. It is answered in a life. You were born into a story already unfolding, a family, a culture, a name, a set of inherited wounds. But the tragedy is not that these were given to you. The tragedy is when you come to believe that this is all you are. The unconscious, that vast interior realm beneath the surface of your awareness, holds the fragments of what you have not yet chosen. Your rage, your brilliance, your shame, your potential, all lie waiting. And it is only when you begin to take conscious ownership of your existence that these fragments come alive. To say, "I am what I choose to become," is not a statement of arrogance. It is an act of sacred responsibility. Because in that moment, you stop blaming the past and start engaging the present. You move from being a product of experience to a participant in meaning. But to choose requires awareness, and awareness requires suffering. It is a painful thing to realize that your current life is the echo of unconscious choices made under fear, not freedom. We think of choice as something that happens in the moment. Should I go left or right? Speak or remain silent? Stay or walk away? But these are surface-level expressions of deeper truths. Real choice begins when you uncover why you make those decisions in the first place. Why do you sabotage yourself? Why do you repeat the same relationship patterns? Why do you betray your own values? The answer is not because you are broken. It is because you are unconscious. The moment you become conscious, you open the possibility of transformation. But you cannot transform what you refuse to see. The darkness must be faced, not fought. You are not choosing between good and evil in most moments of life. You are choosing between truth and illusion, between becoming yourself or remaining a mask. And that choice is made, again and again, in how you live each moment, how you treat others, how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. This is why confronting the shadow is not a luxury. It is a necessity. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is merely everything about you that you have not yet made peace with. And it grows more powerful the more you avoid it. The man who represses his anger becomes passive-aggressive. The woman who denies her ambition becomes resentful. The individual who fears their own capacity for violence becomes vulnerable to the manipulation of others. The paradox is this: what you reject within yourself controls you. What you integrate becomes your strength. Clarity does not come from suppressing your darkness, but from illuminating it. You are not here to become pure. You are here to become whole. And wholeness includes contradiction, complexity, and chaos that has been turned toward purpose. It is easy to talk about light, about growth, about potential. But none of these are real unless they are born out of honest confrontation with your own inner shadow. To know yourself, you must first admit that you do not. You must come to terms with the fact that you are a stranger to parts of your own psyche. And then, with courage, walk into that unknown territory. What you find there may unsettle you. You may discover parts of yourself that you were told were wrong, your rage, your hunger for power, your deep desire to be seen. But these are not to be destroyed. They are to be understood. They are to be disciplined. They are to be integrated into a self that is capable of navigating the world without being possessed by it. The most dangerous people are not those who acknowledge their darkness. They are the ones who deny it, and then act it out unconsciously. If you do not own your shadow, it will own you. It will wear a mask of virtue, but behind that mask will be fear, manipulation, and shame. The journey toward clarity is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. In the beginning, we all wear masks. It is not a flaw, it is a necessity. The child adapts to survive. They learn to behave in ways that secure love, avoid rejection, and navigate chaos. But what was once adaptive becomes restrictive. The mask you wore to be accepted becomes the prison you can no longer escape. You tell yourself, this is who I am. But deep down, you know it's not the whole story. The tragedy is not that we play roles. The tragedy is when we forget that they are roles. You were never meant to remain a character in someone else's narrative. You were meant to become the author of your own. But authorship requires awareness, and awareness is a burden. It means no more excuses, no more blaming the past, no more hiding behind inherited beliefs. It means standing in the tension between who you are and who you could be. And that tension, that psychic pressure, is the birthplace of transformation. There is no finished self. You are not a statue carved out of stone. You are a river. You are not fixed. You are flowing. To define yourself once and for all is to betray the mystery of your becoming. You are always in dialogue with life, with the unconscious, with the unknown. Every experience reshapes you. Every wound leaves a mark. Every insight alters your perception. The mistake is believing that growth means arriving. In truth, growth means continuing. The goal is not perfection, but integration. To carry your wounds with grace. To own your contradictions with humility. To allow your past to inform you without imprisoning you. When you say, I am what I choose to become, you are stepping into the unknown with your eyes open. You are not seeking to control the chaos, but to find clarity within it. That clarity does not come from certainty. It comes from courage. The courage to become. The modern world sells us identities like products. Be this. Post that. Perform this role. Fit into that category. And yet, something inside resists. It whispers, this is not who I am. That whisper is the voice of the self, the deeper center of your being, that is not interested in image, but in truth. The self does not want you to fit in. It wants you to wake up. It does not care whether you are praised or rejected. It only asks, are you living in alignment with what is true for you? That is the terrifying freedom of self-knowledge. Because once you know, you can no longer pretend. Once you've seen the mask, you cannot unsee it. And once you've heard the voice of the self, you cannot go back to silence. But this is not a curse. It is a liberation. Because when you stop pretending, you begin to create. Not just art, not just success, but a life that feels real. And so, you are not lost. You are waiting. You are not broken. You are unfolding. And the chaos around you is not here to destroy you. It is here to demand a response. Who will you choose to become in the face of uncertainty? Will you collapse into fear, or will you rise into freedom? That choice is not made once. It is made every morning, every moment, every breath. And it is never too late to begin again. Because clarity is not something given. It is something earned. Through suffering, through honesty, through relentless courage to keep walking even when the path disappears. You become what you are willing to confront. You become what you refuse to hide. You become what you choose. To take responsibility for one's life is to stand at the edge of a terrifying abyss. To recognize that no one is coming to save you. That your fate is not solely written by others, and that meaning is not inherited, but created. This realization is not cruel, it is sacred. For as long as you remain passive in the face of chaos, you are at its mercy. You drift, you react, you blame. You become a ghost in your own story. But when you begin to own your suffering, your choices, and even your unconscious habits, something profound begins to shift. You awaken the dormant potential to reorder your life from within. The moment you say, this is mine, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, you reclaim the authority to shape your own destiny. It is not about guilt or shame. It is about dignity. The dignity of becoming responsible for the soul you carry and the life you create with it. Responsibility is often misunderstood as a burden, but it is in fact the doorway to freedom. Chaos is not defeated by control. It is transformed by consciousness. And consciousness is cultivated through the difficult and often painful discipline of self-examination. It is easier to project the inner conflict outward, to blame circumstances, parents, society, even fate itself. But projection is the language of avoidance. It delays the confrontation that is necessary for healing. There is nothing more paralyzing than waiting for someone else to fix what only you can face. Responsibility is not the end of suffering. It is the beginning of redemption. It is the sacred act of taking what has been done to you and what you have done to others and weaving it into the larger fabric of who you are becoming. It is the slow, courageous process of turning wounds into wisdom, mistakes into meaning, and unconscious repetition into conscious renewal. When we suffer, we often ask, why me? As though suffering were a punishment or a sign of failure. But this question comes from the ego, the part of us that still believes life should be predictable, safe, and fair. The soul asks a different question. What am I being asked to become through this? Suffering is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of transformation. It is the crucible in which false identities are burned away, leaving only what is essential. You do not grow in comfort. You grow in the places where you are stripped of illusion, the illusion of control, the illusion of permanence, the illusion of being separate from the world around you. In the fire of suffering, your masks melt, and what remains is something raw, something honest, something that cannot be faked. That is where the real self is born, not from avoiding pain, but from walking through it with eyes open and heart engaged. The mistake we often make is believing that suffering is meaningless, that it is a detour from the life we were supposed to live. But in truth, it is the very soil in which meaning takes root. The wound is not the end, it is the portal. It is where the unconscious comes to the surface and asks to be acknowledged. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss contains within it an invitation to integrate, to awaken, to become more than what you were before. This does not mean we romanticize pain. It means we refuse to let it go to waste. When you resist suffering, it festers. When you embrace it, it transforms. The difference lies in your willingness to be present with what is. Not what should be, not what could have been, but what is. Presence is the alchemy that turns chaos into clarity. It is the act of standing still in the storm and discovering that you are not the storm, you are the one who can choose how to walk through it. The greatest mistake is believing that clarity comes from outside, from a plan, a system, a guru, a promise. But clarity is an inside job. It arises when you begin to live in alignment with your inner truth, even when that truth is inconvenient or uncomfortable. Inner sovereignty is not about being unaffected by the world. It is about not being defined by it. You may be misunderstood. You may be rejected. You may even be attacked. But if your choices come from a place of integrity, they become acts of liberation. No one else can walk your path. No one else can tell you who you are. That sacred task belongs to you alone. And the more you honor that task, the more resilient you become in the face of uncertainty. Sovereignty is not control. It is coherence. It is the harmony that arises when your inner world is no longer at war with itself. To become sovereign is to recognize that you are not a victim of your thoughts, your past, or your conditioning. You are the witness, the chooser, the creator, and this recognition does not come all at once. It comes in moments, small acts of courage, decisions made in integrity, boundaries held with grace. It comes when you tell the truth, even when it costs you. It comes when you stop living to please and start living to align. It comes when you look into the mirror, not to judge, but to see clearly. And what you see there is not a perfect being, not a finished product, but a soul in process. Wounded, yes, but wise. Broken, perhaps, but becoming whole. The clarity you seek is not a place you arrive at. It is a posture you inhabit, a way of standing in the world with open eyes and a willing heart. When you begin to live from this place, life changes, not because the external circumstances improve, but because your orientation to them is different. You no longer beg the world for permission to exist. You no longer shrink to fit into roles that betray your truth. You no longer wait for someone else to see your worth before you claim it yourself. This is the moment of return. The return to yourself. Not the self you were told to be, but the self that has always been quietly waiting beneath the noise. The one who knows. The one who remembers. The one who chooses, even in the face of fear. And with each choice aligned with that deeper self, chaos begins to lose its grip. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer defines you. You are no longer at its mercy. You have become the author, the alchemist, the sovereign. The final illusion to shed is the idea that clarity means certainty. It does not. Clarity means commitment to truth, to growth, to becoming. It means walking through the unknown with eyes open, even when the path is unclear. It means choosing who you will be, again and again, in the face of what you cannot control. That choice is not made once. It is made daily. It is etched into your habits, your relationships, your values. It is the quiet courage to remain faithful to your soul's voice even when the world tries to drown it out. And in that faithfulness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see clearly, not because the world becomes less chaotic, but because you have become more coherent. You begin to trust yourself, not because you know all the answers, but because you have stopped abandoning yourself in search of them. You were never meant to live in fear of yourself. You were meant to explore the vastness of your being, to dive into the depths of your unconscious. Retrieve the pieces of your soul that you left behind, and return with something whole. You were meant to confront the chaos, not be destroyed by it. You were meant to choose, not from fear, not from habit, but from truth. And you were meant to become, not what others want you to be, not what your past conditioned you to be, but what your soul has always been longing for you to embody. That becoming is not a destination. It is a sacred unfolding. And every moment of awareness, every act of responsibility, every step into your own sovereignty brings you closer to what has always been waiting within you. Not outside, not later, but here, now.